The day I decided to divorce Oscar was my birthday. At the table, I made a joke and asked him if he loved me. Oscar gave a half-hearted smile and said, "I'm already over 30. Why be so melodramatic?" I lowered my head in silence and glanced at the screenshot on my phone. In the background of the chat, Oscar was passionately kissing another woman. In the dialogue box, he confessed his love. Oscar, have only ever loved you, Monica." Looking up, I asked him, "Will you give me a birthday present?" He quickly replied, "What do you want? Just tell me." Without hesitation, I slipped the ring off my finger and said, "Give me a new beginning. Oscar, let's get divorced." Chapter 1. When he heard my words, Oscar didn't react. His well-defined brows furrowed slightly. I put down my cutlery, calmly dabbed the corner of my lips with a napkin, and then looked up at him. He stared back at me with impatience. "Laura, why do you seem like a different person?" I took a sip of juice. "What's the matter? Is there no room for romance between us? We've been married for 5 years. Why is it so hard for you to tell me you love me?" Oscar stood up, walked over, and patted me on the shoulder. "Don't be ridiculous. You know I'm not good at saying sweet things. I heard you've got a project that hasn't been filmed yet, and you're in a bad mood. In a few days I have a trade fair. Come with me, take a break." Avoiding his hand, I continued, "The divorce papers are ready for you." Oscar snapped, "Laura, are you joking? You're pregnant, and now you want a divorce? Is it some kind of hormonal imbalance?" "Yes, I do have a hormonal imbalance. I've always been calm, even after years of battling in the business world. I've always spoken politely, never using harsh words. But now that I'm pregnant, my temper seems to flare a little more." I stood up and threw the phone in his face. "You're the guilty one. Don't provoke me, or this will go to court and you won't like the outcome." Chapter 2. On my phone was a screenshot of a group chat between Monica, Oscar, and me. In the background, old classmates were cheering them on as she and Oscar kissed passionately. The texts were his raw confessions to her, fragments mixed with filler words, clearly converted from voice messages. After all these years, he still couldn't stop thinking about her marrying me because of his parents was the biggest regret of his life in the end. There is no turning back in life, but he, Oscar, has only ever loved her Monica. After seeing the screenshot, Oscar rushed to explain. "That night at the reunion I was drunk. Monica, you know I've never been proper. She took my phone and edited the messages." I laughed bitterly. "So, the kisses too, were those just random?" Oscar was stunned. "Of course, I was really drunk at the time." He rubbed his forehead. "Don't you know what kind of man I am? Don't worry, I won't go to reunions anymore." I know exactly who you are," I said, opening my phone and carefully reading through the divorce procedure my secretary had sent me. Oscar heard me and smiled. "That's my good wife. Happy birthday. I'll go check on the trade fair." He put on his jacket and headed to the door. Just as he was about to leave, I said coldly, "Oscar, you're a despicable man, cheating on your wife while she's pregnant." He turned around, stunned. "Laura, why are you being unreasonable? I told you I was just drinking." I swallowed a nutritional supplement pill with my meal and replied icily, "Save that excuse for the judge. Let's see if he believes you." Chapter 3. Oscar told me to get some rest and left, closing the door behind him. I cut the birthday cake myself and took a small bite. The cream slid down my throat, making me nauseous, so I rushed to the bathroom and vomited for a long time. Just as I was feeling weak, Mrs. Lee called me. She has always been a supporter of mine. When I first started working on projects alone, she was my very first investor. After she returned to full family life, she saw that I continued to fight in the business world even after marriage, and she stayed in contact with me. Recently, both of us were pregnant, and we often went together for prenatal checkups. She always said that looking at me was like seeing a version of herself in a life where she had chosen differently. Now, looking at her messages almost made me laugh. What alternative version? Speaking of men who cheat after marriage, this was a real plot twist. But clearly, her story was even more dramatic than mine. In the photo she sent, a man and a woman were in a car, consumed with passion. Their bare bodies pressed together like worms, inseparable. Holding back another wave of nausea, I answered her call. "Mrs. Lee was distraught, her voice trembling with sobs. I'm pregnant, and he's out with another woman. I feel so sick I could throw up. I didn't know how to comfort her, so I spoke about myself instead. Don't worry, I'm in the same situation. We'll get through this together. Mrs.
Ligaspat. What?
Oscar? How could that be? In our circle, Oscar was known as a good man. Every day he went from home to work and back. Aside from work, he only exercised. He was always considered an example of integrity. So of course, her shock was normal. But when I stayed silent, her indignation quickly grew. We'll meet tomorrow at the hospital entrance. Let's have abortions together. I interrupted quickly. No, Mrs.
Lee.
I can accompany you, but I'm not going to have an abortion. Chapter 4. When she realized I didn't want to abort Mrs. Lee became obsessed with talking. Afraid she couldn't explain everything over the phone, she asked me to meet in a few days for tea. After hanging up, I massaged my temples and got up to lie down on the bed. Oscar wasn't wrong, pregnant women really do need proper rest. Just as I was about to close my eyes, my phone buzzed again. When I opened it, there was a message from Monica. Since graduating from university, we hadn't spoken a single word. But ever since she returned from abroad last month, our chat had suddenly become lively. Now bam, one little text after another. Laura, I'm so sorry. The other night at the alumni reunion, I got drunk and accidentally picked up Ossie's phone. I opened your chat and pressed the record button. Ossie was drunk too. That's why he said those stupid things. Laura, that night after drinking, time and space got all mixed up. You know, he and I back in college at the party we hugged, classmates laughed and took photos, and somehow I set one as the chat background without realizing. Laura, Ossie says you're pregnant, let me explain. The two of us are completely innocent. Don't be angry. One day we'll both come to apologize to you. What a pile of nonsense that always seems to happen after drinking. I drunkenly recorded the conversation, converted it into text, then set a background of kisses, and finally got sent a screenshot. After all these years, Monica really hadn't changed at all. She still looked as fragile as ever, only good at playing dumb little tricks that ruin other people's families. Chapter 5. Monica mentioned our university days. The three of us had been classmates. My relationship with Oscar had always been straightforward: an elite marriage, childhood friends. From elementary through high school, our families had arranged our lives in almost identical ways. Oscar was always exceptional, and I was always his equal. In college, where our families couldn't control us, we both got in on our own merit, tied for first and second place in admissions. When the acceptance letters arrived, old Mr. Ning brought Oscar to my house and said our union was already agreed upon. In a few years, once we were older, we'd hold the engagement ceremony. Oscar's mother joked at the time, in college, there's no guarantee some little temptress won't show up to chase after money and ruin his marriage prospects. Oscar replied to his mother with disdain, I only like Laura. Unless I go blind, I could never fall for anyone else. The adults all laughed. He grabbed my hand and pulled me to a quiet corner. My face turned completely red, and he kissed me for the first time. He promised he would always protect me and never betray me. I never expected that in our very first year, Oscar would truly go blind, falling madly into Monica's trap. Chapter 6. And that's exactly why it's called a trap. Because Monica's tactics weren't open pursuit or subtle flirting. Instead, after staging countless coincidences, she would put on an innocent face to explain it all away. She was my roommate, Oscar and I were always together, and the entire school knew we were a couple. Yet somehow, Monica always managed to create her own little stories with him. For example, on a field trip, she got on a shared bike and deliberately crashed into Oscar's. She fell, her arms covered in bruises, her forehead bleeding. Oscar rushed her to the hospital. Afterwards, she grabbed my hand and insisted, Laura, don't misunderstand. It was just the hospital. Nothing's going on between us. Another time, Oscar and I signed up as a team for a student activity. She volunteered for the event too. While we were setting up, I spilled the milk tea Oscar had bought me, soaking the event materials. I offered to reprint them and dragged Oscar to the print shop. When we returned, Monica told me sweetly, Laura, it was just printing materials, don't overthink it. Chapter 7. At first, Oscar complained about her with irritation, saying Monica was the most annoying girl he had ever met. But after a few incidents, his attitude changed. When he brought me something, he would start bringing an extra one for her too. Your poor roommate Monica lives in misery. Give her a little pity. Soon after, he began calling her Moni, and she called him Aussie. On my freshman birthday party, Oscar put his arm around her shoulders and declared in front of everyone that Moni was now like a sister to him. Monica beamed and said, "Sister? More like a brother." She repeated it over and over. "Laura, don't misunderstand. It's just a nickname." But later, after a while of being siblings, Oscar suddenly told me that his feelings for me were never romantic. After we broke up, he had a heated relationship with Monica. It only ended when she left abroad with her professor. Old Mr. Ning beat Oscar severely, leaving him bruised and battered. Oscar dragged his wounded body and spent the whole night kneeling outside my house in the pouring rain. His wounds bled, and when he was hospitalized in a coma, he cried out my name, begging for forgiveness. My mother hugged me and said, "Laura, what man isn't confused at times? Don't be angry anymore." My father, on the other hand, was furious, saying he didn't understand anything and forbidding Oscar from entering our home, which left him soaked and hospitalized. In the end, I couldn't shake off the feelings that had followed me since childhood. Following my parents' arrangement, I got engaged to him. I never expected Monica to return now. And together, they would replay the same tangled mess before my eyes all over again. Chapter 8. Mrs. Lee chose an elegant tea restaurant with soft flavors. In the 2 weeks we hadn't seen each other, both of us had been caught up in dramas. But now, she had dark circles, messy hair, and wrinkled clothes. Still, she looked composed, dressed in a gentle cashmere dress, and she had even put a white Australian wool necklace around my neck. After nibbling a small bite, I swallowed a nutritional supplement, Mrs. Lee finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Laura, did I hear wrong on the phone? Oscar cheating? That can't be true, right?" I shook my head. "You didn't hear wrong." Her face was filled with confusion. "Then I don't understand. I feel like aborting immediately. What's wrong with you? It's already like this, though you still want to have a child with such a filthy man?" Calmly, I stroked her hand and replied, "Mrs. Lee, we've known each other for so long. In all that time, have you ever seen me do anything without preparation?" Under her piercing gaze, I pulled out the prenuptial agreement Ning had promised me. Chapter 9. The prenup clearly stated that if either party committed adultery, the unfaithful spouse's assets would belong to the children. Mrs. Lee's expression turned to awe. "You people from the old families are different. We, the nouveau riche, could never think that far even if we tried." I gave a bitter smile. Marriage alliances between families have always been about interests. After all, in high-profile marriages, instability, like divorce, was the greatest fear. That's why they came up with this idea. But the agreement was cunning. It only applied in the case of pregnancy. And once there's a child, most women, especially ordinary ones, rarely choose divorce. After 10 months of pregnancy and the agony of childbirth, how could a mother bear to leave her child without a father? I remembered my mother. When I was young, my father played around outside and my mother, deeply hurt, would cry to me, "Laura, I'm not divorcing for your sake and your siblings. I don't want you to grow up without a father." Back then, I was just a child, filled with anger. But now that I'm grown, I see things differently. I don't want to be an ordinary woman. Mrs. Lee handed the agreement back to me with a bitter face. "Laura, I don't have guarantees like you." I comforted her. "Think carefully. Even if this can't be delayed forever, it can't be solved overnight either." Before I could finish, she cut me off, emotions rising again. "I don't need to think. A man that filthy, I don't want to have his child." I swallowed a shrimp dumpling and wiped my mouth.
Fine.
"Since you've decided, there's no time to waste. I'll go with you today. We'll abort." Chapter 10. On the way, we agreed she would go through with the abortion while I would just get a pregnancy checkup. At the department entrance, one girl had just come out of the operating room, her face pale. Another was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees, her head buried deep. When our number was finally called, Mrs. Lee clutched my sleeve tightly. Her face was ashen, her hands trembling slightly. I whispered, "What's wrong? Don't you want to go in?" Biting her lip, she pulled me into the side hallway. It was empty. She collapsed into a chair, covered her face, and began to sob softly. I leaned down and hugged her gently, speaking in a low voice. "Don't hold it in. You can tell me anything." She rested on my shoulder, her voice trembling. "Laura, I hate that I can't accept my body isn't fit to have children. I've had so many ovulation injections just to conceive this baby. I never expected it would come to this. If it were you, could you bear it? And besides, I haven't had any income of my own for a long time. My husband ruined my business over the years. This child is my only bargaining chip to keep him. Without it, what will I do?" She poured her heart out in one breath. I sighed deeply and wiped her tears. "Exactly. You should take your time and reflect, instead of talking about abortions so lightly. Laura, she lifted her tear-streaked face. "Do you think abortion is that easy?" I smiled faintly. "It needs an appointment too. But it's only when you're forced into a dead end that your mind becomes clear. That's why I brought you here. Calm yourself. We'll make a long-term plan. And from today, I don't want to call you Mrs.
Liamura.
Call me Zoe," she whispered, then hugged me tightly. After we steadied our emotions, we went in for the pregnancy checkup. But as soon as we stepped out of the elevator and walked a few steps, I unexpectedly ran into Oscar. He was supporting a woman with a bleeding leg, standing in line for surgery. They were both in sportswear. She wore Oscar's jacket, but it still couldn't hide her curvy figure. It was Monica. "Isn't that your Oscar?" Zoe, whose emotions had just calmed, flared up again. She rushed over and slapped Monica hard across the face. "Everyone, come look at the dead mistress." At her shout, the crowd quickly gathered. Monica covered her face, tears spilling down her cheeks. Amid the chaos, Oscar didn't even have time to speak. A boy clutching a bottle of mineral water rushed forward. "Who are you calling mistress?" Chapter 11. What's with the fuss? "Who are you?" Zoe demanded. "I'm Lucas, Professor Monica's student. She's an exceptional talent. How can you slander her like this?" The boy was tall, radiating youthful energy. Recently, I had learned about Monica's situation since her return. She was teaching at a university now. That boy must be her student. Exceptional talent?
She's trash.
He's a married man. What's the meaning of being so close? Zoe jabbed her finger between Oscar and Monica. At my crime scene, Zoe was more worked up than I was. The situation became almost absurd. "Hey, sister, you misunderstood. It's not that I was hurt and couldn't stand. I was at the gym and ran into an old classmate who kindly brought me to the hospital. Don't slander people without reason." Monica wept, her face streaked with tears, crying pitifully. Oscar quickly pulled his hand back from Monica's and turned to the onlookers. "It's a misunderstanding. There's nothing to see here. Disperse." I laughed coldly. "Oscar, you always say you're too busy to accompany me for pregnancy checkups. And yet here you are so busy indeed." Oscar stepped closer to me with a worried look. "I've been so stressed lately with work, so I've been going to the gym more often, and it just so happened I found Monica injured. It was really an accident. Last time it was because you were drunk, and this time it's an accident? How convenient." I laughed coldly, pointing at Monica's clothes. "That sports jacket, wasn't it the one I gave you?" The moment Oscar heard this, he flinched, yanked it off, and tossed it aside. Monica, wearing only a tight crop top with a plunging neckline, suddenly shivered with cold. Lucas, the student beside her, immediately took off his own jacket and draped it over Monica's shoulders, opening a bottle of water and handing it to her. "Professor, have a sip of water, calm yourself." Monica waved it away and instead came crying toward me. "Laura, we were roommates in college. Please trust me, nothing really happened. Aussie only gave me the jacket because he saw I was cold. Professor, you don't need to explain. What's clear will always be clear," Lucas said firmly, pulling Monica back. Oscar reached for my hand. "Laura, let me accompany you to the pregnancy checkup. These three really could put on a grand performance." My stomach churned in disgust.
No.
"Stay here." Shaking off his hand, I pulled Zoe with me and walked away quickly. As we left, Zoe muttered, "Even if I didn't catch the mistress in the act, slapping Oscar still feels like a release." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Zoe added, "Laura, you really know how to handle things. You're not even angry?" "I am angry," I sighed, "but now I only think about solving the problem. Monica's reappearance might be fate saving me." Zoe, I've had enough of Oscar. Chapter 12. When I married Oscar, I was full of joy, thinking that even with ups and downs, at least I had managed to go from school uniform to wedding gown with the person I loved. I worked hard to maintain my relationship with him. Oscar had a minor lung problem, so for years I made him pear soup to nourish his lungs. He liked the gym, so in my spare time I went with him. But gradually, I realized something was wrong. I had emotions, but he only knew how to buy gifts. Never once did he ask why I was sad. At the gym, we never communicated. Even when I wiped his sweat, he would pull away. Before marriage, he wasn't like this. After breaking up with Monica, he had worked so hard to be good to me, saying he wanted to make up for his mistakes. But after the wedding, he cooled, like an engine that had revved too hard and burned out. I was tormented inside, unable to find the reason. One night, collapsing in despair, I hugged him from behind and asked if there was something I wasn't doing right, something I should change. But he always said I was wonderful, that I shouldn't worry. Slowly, I became discouraged. In business settings, we played the part of a loving couple. In private, we were nothing more than roommates. Until recently, when Oscar embraced me and said, "Laura, we should have a child. I want us to create something of our own." My mother and mother-in-law had also been pressuring us to have kids. Deep down, a spark of hope rekindled. Would having a child really be a good thing? I didn't expect that before I could even answer, I was already pregnant. I also didn't expect Monica to reappear at this moment. Oscar claimed he kissed her because he was drunk. But I know how he acts when he's drunk. In the business world, how many times has he been drunk? And every time, without exception, he was calm and in control. So when I saw that picture of him kissing Monica, I already knew the answer. Our marriage had no future. His so-called drunken words had completely awakened me. It turned out that his behavior before the marriage wasn't about making amends, it was deception, just to trick me into marrying him. And once he did, he regretted marrying me for the sake of his family. The pride I once felt, from school uniform to wedding gown, was nothing compared to the night he toasted Monica. The night I received Monica's screenshot, I couldn't sleep at all. Tears soaked my pillow. I regret being like a turtle hiding in its shell, struggling for so long in a marriage full of disappointment. What shamed me most was my own foolishness, thinking I could save my marriage through a child. Children so innocent. In the end, I felt a deep relief. I was glad I had never abandoned my career. That was my greatest source of courage, the one thing keeping me moving forward. Chapter 13. After leaving the hospital with Zoe, we chatted a little longer. When I got home, Oscar was already there. "Laura," he approached, reaching as if to hug me. I quickly dodged. "Disgusting." He pulled his hand back awkwardly and handed me his phone. "Laura, I know I shouldn't have any more contact with her. I didn't expect to see her at the gym. We were classmates, I couldn't just ignore her. Look, check my phone. I've deleted all her contact information. From now on, we'll be strangers." Then, with a sincere expression, he pulled out a necklace. "Don't be angry. Anger isn't good for the baby. This is a limited edition blue diamond necklace I had engraved. Come, let me put it on you." I said nothing. Oscar led me to sit in front of the mirror and clasped it around my neck. The blue diamond sparkled brightly, and seeing his smug expression, for a moment it felt like déjà vu, like that rainy night when he lay injured in the hospital, clutching my hand with the same pleading look. But I will not fall for the same trick a second time. "Oscar, cheap things like this, I can buy plenty of them myself. They mean nothing." I touched the necklace with indifference. Oscar, still crouching, stared at me in the mirror. My voice turned cold. "Listen carefully. Stand up slowly." His tone hardened.
Fine.
"In the future, I'll get you something better. But you also need to be careful not to get too close to that missus." She went crazy recently, even hired a private detective to follow her husband. You should be a good wife. You've always known how to do that. In the mirror, his long legs passed quickly, then came the sound of the door closing. After he left, I immediately pulled out my phone. The secretary had already sent me the surveillance footage she found. Oscar had told me not to hire a private detective like Zoe. Why bother? He didn't know I had already rented that gym. I was the owner of that gym. When I was in the hospital, I had asked my secretary to check the camera recordings. Chapter 14. In the footage, Monica walked into the gym with Lucas right behind her. Her eyes wandered, and the moment she spotted Oscar, she quickly placed herself next to him on the treadmill. From pretending to be surprised to letting her eyes well up with tears, she changed expressions effortlessly. Then she moved to a treadmill far from Oscar's, glancing at him repeatedly until she deliberately fell, cutting her leg and bleeding. Lucas rushed to help, but Oscar immediately ran over, swatted Lucas's hand away, and lifted Monica up himself. Monica clung to him like an octopus. After watching the video, I couldn't help but admit Monica was skilled. She had mastered the art of competition perfectly. I called my secretary. Help me get the contact information of someone. He's Monica's student. His name is Lucas. Chapter 15. After my argument with Oscar that day, he stopped coming home at night. I scheduled appointments with a psychologist and occasionally went for emotional massages. I confided this to the therapist. The psychologist asked, "Have you ever heard of something called the obedience test?" I nodded. Yes, I've heard of it. The only time I made a sarcastic joke about his gift, he didn't take it well and punished me, wanting me to humiliate myself. The psychologist smiled. Miss, you really are very intelligent. In truth, you come here more to vent. Your mental strength is quite good. But it's clear that your maturity and stability have long been repressed. Inside, a wave of bitterness rose. I grew up in repression at home. But thankfully, I've improved over the years. I'm much better now. The therapist advised, during this time, while you make sure to rest, try doing more things. It will help you out of bad emotions. I nodded. I listened to the therapist a lot. I was too busy to have time for regrets. By day, I handled business affairs. At night, besides helping Zoe choose projects, I also had to watch the gym footage my secretary sent me so carefully. It was like following a drama series. Oscar hadn't been home these days. He still went to the gym every day. And at the same time, Monica was always there. Chapter 16. Monica's leg was recovering at an incredible speed. No matter the weather, she kept training. Each time, Monica chose equipment far from Oscar. Still, she always brought Lucas with her. Lucas took care of her meticulously, from adjusting machines to bringing water and towels, always attentive. After so many years of marriage, I knew Oscar well. He looked calm while training, but in reality, he was distracted, especially whenever Monica and Lucas laughed and chatted together. His movements became stiff, unnatural. And every time Monica interacted with Lucas, she always stole glances at Oscar. On this stage of 3, Monica deliberately used another man to make Oscar jealous. And Oscar fell into the trap, consumed by envy. Only Lucas seemed completely unaware. Oscar's workouts grew more and more distracted. Finally, one day, Monica stopped bringing Lucas. She adjusted a machine on her own, clearly failing. She looked up with an expression of helplessness, her eyes meeting Oscar's. They stared at each other for a full minute. Then they both began walking toward one another. Oscar helped her adjust the last machine. The two exercised side by side. From start to finish, they didn't speak a single word. But I knew. The ashes were about to reignite. Chapter 17. Oscar called early after half a month of not coming home. Laura, the trade fair party here is in 3 days. I'll send a gift to the house, get ready. I answered with a cold tone, only 2 words. No time. He hung up quickly. That night, I invited Zoe to my home. I wanted to discuss the projects I had selected for her. Some time ago, I had laid everything out clearly to her. The most important thing now was, on one hand, deciding the future of the child, and on the other, regaining control of the assets. I asked Zoe to find a way to detail all of the in-group's properties. I selected some assets that seemed insignificant but actually had great potential. No matter what method you use, Whether begging or playing the fool, once you secure this, you'll have a relatively decent chance to get back into the game. Zoe was amazed at my business insight, nodding repeatedly. She looked at my simple analysis report and suddenly spoke. Laura, before coming here I hadn't decided whether to keep the child or not. But now I know the answer. I won't keep it. Her voice trembled. I can't go on living with a man who's been unfaithful. If I have to leave, the most urgent thing is to restart my career. I can't handle anything else. I can't give the child a good start. And besides, I'm not like you, Laura. You're rational enough. I have a dependent nature. I'm afraid if I give birth, my life will revolve around the child alone, which would be bad for both of us. Zoe grabbed my hand. I also understand why you left the child. Your ability gives you confidence. I nodded. A parent's gratitude isn't in raising but in supporting. In truth, leaving Oscar with nothing is just punishment for him. My child doesn't need his money. I can provide everything myself. Zoe asked, Laura, have you thought about the problem of the father's absence? I curled my lips faintly. A child's character and well-being depend on the education they receive. Having an unfit father and an oppressive home is far worse than having no father at all. A capable mother can provide complete education. Zoe, with red eyes, could no longer disagree with me. I clapped my hands and stood up. Well, we've finished the heavy topics. Zoe, want me to show you something interesting? I brought out some healthy snacks, poured fresh juice, and opened the latest video from the gym my secretary had sent. Chapter 18. Zoe instantly switched into gossip mode. Oscar looks like he's in a bad mood. I gave her a thumbs up. Good eye, Zoe. I suffocated him a bit this morning, must be ready to explode with anger. Are you angry? Shouldn't you relax a little? And what about his mistress? Zoe barely finished when Monica appeared. The two of them ran side by side in silence. Their workout ended. Monica picked up a cup, intending to drink, but she opened it and put it back down, as if she'd forgotten to fill it. She hadn't brought water or a towel, and now she stared pitifully at Oscar's cup and towel. Zoe, this is a big move, I commented. Zoe scoffed. What a strong cup of tea. Oscar hesitated for a few seconds, clearly locked in an intense inner struggle. Yet he still handed her the cup. Then he slowly walked over to her side, took a towel, and began wiping the sweat from her forehead. At that moment, Monica, who must have been waiting for this, grabbed Oscar's hand. Tears as big as peas rolled down her cheeks, and suddenly she wrapped her arms around his waist and kissed him. Zoe, munching on nuts, froze with her mouth wide open like a startled hamster. I frantically clicked my mouse, capturing screenshot after screenshot. Zoe suddenly threw the nuts aside and demanded the gym's address. Laura, what's the use of just screenshots? From my experience, those two will definitely have a story tonight. Zoe quickly dialed her private detective. Go now and follow them. Chapter 19. At 9 that night, the detective sent word. Oscar and Monica had gone to a hotel. Zoe grabbed her coat and tried to drag me out. Now we've got ironclad evidence. Come on, sister, let's catch them in bed. As we headed for the door, I suddenly remembered something. Zoe, we don't both need to go. I have a better option. Remember that boy in the hospital who swore Monica wasn't a mistress? I sent someone to investigate their relationship. All of Monica's research projects are funneled to Lucas. Yet most of the results she claims as her own. The way Lucas looks at her goes far beyond a student's admiration for a teacher. The fact that he goes with her to the gym over and over proves their relationship is far from normal. I picked up my phone and called that little slut Monica. Hello, sorry to bother you, but I think what I have to say will interest you. Chapter 20. At midnight, I received shocking feedback. My phone first flashed a friend request. Lucas had searched my WeChat by number. The moment I accepted, the chat exploded with photos. Every one of them showed Oscar and Monica in their secret rendezvous. Somehow, Lucas had barged into their room. In the photos, Monica was curled up on the bed, Oscar in a bathrobe, and scattered across the floor were several incriminating objects. The images were so provocative, they made one blush. Lucas called me directly. I'm sorry, back at the hospital it was me who offended you. Today I found out she deceived me, exploiting my love, using my work while telling me she loved she was tangled up with your husband. He took a deep breath. Don't worry, I'll make this woman's true face public. I didn't say much, only gave him the email of Monica's old tutor's wife. I had also learned that Monica had no real academic ability. During her years abroad, she had published papers only thanks to her tutor. In foreign academic circles, she was already being called the academic Medusa. She was kicked back to her country by her tutor's wife. A repeat offender. Chapter 21. That night, I called Oscar home. He quickly replied, "Knowing you were wrong is a good start. I'll come home tonight." He thought I was relenting. When he arrived, Oscar's face showed exhaustion, probably burdened by Lucas barging into their room. At the right moment, I added fuel to the fire. Photos were scattered all across the coffee table. "Oscar, is this evidence enough for you?" His face flushed, his voice hoarse. "Do you really want to leave me no way out?" I nodded. "Tomorrow we'll divorce. You'll walk away with nothing, and the child stays with me. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with each other." For once, Oscar lost his temper. "Laura, do you think you're so superior? Let me tell you, when it comes to infidelity, I'm not the only guilty one. Look around you. Do you even look like a woman anymore? Since we were young, you've always trampled me at the critical moments. Back in school, you were always fighting me for first place. That was fine then. But now that we're married, you're still the same, buried in business every day, desperate to stand out. Now that our relationship is in crisis, you still keep your eyes fixed on money, cold as a robot. Do you know why I like Monica? Because she gave me the passion of love, the feeling of dependence a woman can have on a man." Oscar had completely lost control. After saying all that, he collapsed heavily onto the sofa, his forehead resting in his hand. I listened silently until he finished. In the midst of absolute silence, I suddenly laughed. Oscar, his eyes bloodshot, asked, "What are you laughing at?" I shrugged. "I laugh because now I finally know what powerless rage feels like." I didn't bother to argue further. I had already wasted enough time on him. You can never wake someone who pretends to be asleep. I handed him the divorce agreement. Oscar sneered coldly. "Divorce is better. I'll marry Monica right away. She's not as cold as you. Keep your money and die alone." "Thanks for the good wishes," I replied with icy calm. Oscar, enraged, snatched the papers and signed without even glancing at them. Chapter 22. During the divorce cooling-off period, my father called me relentlessly. "Are you insane? Pregnant and divorcing?" I quietly listened as he listed endless disadvantages, how the reputations of both families would suffer, how asset disputes could erupt, how alliances could dissolve. The only thing he didn't consider was my happiness. I didn't say much, only responded briefly. "Oscar will soon be the center of scandal. Divorce is protection for the Xia family. And even if I step 1,000 miles back if I divorce, it's my marital freedom. I'll consider your opinion, but I won't accept your manipulation anymore. And tell Mother not to come begging me, because it won't work." Since childhood, I had received too much education from my father. He taught me girls should never be competitive, that the most important thing was to marry into a good family, to be modest, discreet, submissive. He left the group's business to my brothers and arranged a so-called perfect marriage for me. But today's reality had already proven the absurdity of that idea. And my mother, for the sake of her children, chose not to divorce and instead clung to a superficial peace, yet in truth, she lived like walking on thin ice, full of resentment. I don't want that life. My life and my child's life should be defined by us alone. Chapter 23. On the day I went to collect the divorce certificate, Oscar brought Monica with him. In front of Oscar, she acted uneasy. "Laura, I told him not to rush the process into a single day. He wouldn't listen," but when Oscar turned to answer a call, she looked at me with arrogance. "Laura, you may have beaten me in university, but now you're still losing. Thank you for taking care of Aussie all these years. A man as exceptional as him, that's truly the best fate a woman can have." I stared at her blankly, like at a crowing rooster. Receiving my divorce certificate, I smiled faintly at Monica before leaving. "I wish you happiness. Your wedding gift is already on the way." With that, I turned and walked away. At the same moment, I sent Lucas a message. The divorce and the wedding are done. Find the right moment the news can be released. Chapter 24. Zoe worked desperately to secure the assets, and once she did, she filed for divorce from her husband. He laughed, thinking she was bluffing. Zoe told me she had already scheduled an abortion. On the day itself, I accompanied her. Before entering the operating room, she caressed her stomach and whispered, "Laura, I'm so sorry to this child, but I have no choice." I held her hand and said, "All we can ever do is make the best choice, right?" Zoe nodded and walked in. Inside and outside the room, one life was fading while another was growing. What was being acted out was the courage to begin again. Chapter 25. News of Oscar's split began to spread across social media. Clearly, he hadn't told Monica anything. Instead, he hired people to post online, announcing his new marriage to her. The headlines read, "True love can overcome any hardship." But their so-called true love couldn't even wait. Monica called me, furious. "Laura, have you no shame? A day of marriage means 100 days of kindness, and you left him with nothing. You set him up." I laughed. "And what's this? People act, but heaven sees. You'd better take care of yourself." I hung up. Online, an article about the academic Medusa went viral. Someone had dissected Monica's academic record in detail: every achievement stolen, every resource exploited, every student drained. A PPT presentation exposed, piece by piece, her history of wrecking marriages time and again. That very day, the university where she taught issued a statement announcing an investigation. It didn't take long before results came out. The situation is true. Her actions violate teaching ethics. Professor Monica has been dismissed. Compared to that, the previous posts about true love looked utterly ridiculous. At the same time, someone leaked that I was pregnant, confirming Oscar's infidelity during his wife's pregnancy. It triggered a steep plunge in the Ning Group's stock price. Oscar, once a director, was immediately dismissed by a late-night announcement. Within the family, competition among the heirs was fierce, and Oscar's elder brother pushed for his complete removal. From then on, I blocked all contact with Monica and Oscar. Chapter 26. My belly began to swell. At 8 months, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. When I answered, I heard a voice I knew too well. "Laura, are you about to give birth? May I come see you just once? I want to see our child born. It's me, Oscar." We hadn't seen each other in months, yet his voice sounded shockingly aged. I hadn't even replied when he rushed to add, "Laura, I divorced that lunatic Monica. Laura, I've failed you. Can you?" I cut him off. "Mr. Ning, whatever happens between you and your wife is none of my concern. You carry a stain, your career is ruined. Look at yourself in the mirror. My child has nothing to do with you. He will carry his mother's surname, Xia. Take care of yourself. Don't call me again." On the other end of the line, Oscar's voice broke into fragments. In the end, he couldn't utter a single word. Chapter 27. Time passed quickly, and the due date finally arrived. Zoe, who had once been tirelessly working on her project, now took leave and spent every day at the maternity center with me. She leaned her head against my belly, listening to the baby's movements, tears glistening in her eyes. "Laura, we promise this child is yours and also mine." Smiling, I answered the little one kicking inside me. "You mischievous little thing. Look how much your godmother loves you. I'm afraid she might just reach in and pull you out right now." On the day of your birth, with a resounding cry, I officially received the precious gift heaven had sent me. In that moment, I was exhausted yet filled with strength. In my heart, I repeated, "May your heart always be pure, your eyes always shine, and your body always be healthy. May your soul be free, and your character noble. May you never know fear, may you follow your heart, and may you always move forward."